Welcome, I'm Stephen Burns from ChromaIllusion.com, and I'm going to continue talking about Artrage 3.0, and we stopped here at the roller. Now here's a brush that I'm really excited about. This one is your watercolor brush, okay? It does some pretty amazing stuff. In fact, I'm more impressed with this than what I've seen in Painter. So I'm going to select the brush here. I'm going to give it 100% in size, and let's go ahead and add some color down in here. Let's go something like a blue. Let's go ahead and put some blue on there. Alright, and look at the way it starts to flow with one another. Look at that. If I press down harder, I'm adding a little bigger swatch. Really nice functionality. Let's go ahead and add another color. I'm going to add some yellow and start to blend that in. Look at that, very realistic. Now, and that's not all we can do. Take a look at our color bleed. Let's go ahead and bring the color bleed up just a little bit more. Alright, so we're starting to bleed more into one another. Let's go ahead and add a little bit more, add some red here. Look at that, isn't that wonderful? And look at the way it's bleeding. Look at the edges right in here. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit and use my shortcut, my space bar, to hold it down. And I'm going to bring down the size of my brush just a little bit. I'm clicking and holding right down here on the left hand side of my brush palette. Look at that, it's nice bleed. And let's go add a little more color bleed. Bring it on through there. Really neat functionality, and it gives me a feeling that I'm actually working with watercolor. Okay, I'm going to add a little more right down over in here. Alright, so let's take off loading a little bit. Let's give it a little bit less loading, like a 52%. See how it's coming off quickly off the brush. Immediately it's coming off very quickly, because watercolor just doesn't hold very well. It doesn't react like oil paints or acrylic paints. So let's load it a little bit more. You can see we have a little bit more. Let's go ahead and give it a different color so we can see the difference here. And it's just bleeding with the other colors in here. Okay, let's add some thinner. Alright, some more thinner. Look at this. Yeah, more thinner to our color. And I'm also going to add more loading. I'm going to go to 100% loading. There we go. Adding a lot more thinner. Placing it on top. Let's do less color bleed to see what it does. The colors become a little more independent. Even if I stroke over, they start to blend pretty well. Now here's a fun little feature, especially with the watercolor brush. Right over here, paper wet under your settings is turned off by default. Let's turn it on and see what. Look at that. Now we got that wet paper coming through. The paints are reacting to it. Isn't that nice? Just some very nice functionality. Great for cloud effects or rainy day effects. This is really, look at that. Just gonna bring it on down. Let's add more thinner. Okay, see what it does. It really picks up that paint off the canvas and smears what's there. And a little more color bleed. See what it does. Okay, so we have all types of very neat functionality in here. Alright, so that was our watercolor brush. Definitely play around with this. Your eraser is pretty much self-explanatory. You're just erasing away your results, or I can turn my Wacom brush around, a Wacom pen around, and erase the back of the eraser on my Wacom pen. Exactly is what I'm using now. It's erasing away my effects on the canvas. This one here is our marker. Okay, we just kind of, our felt pen I should say. Let's go ahead, and it's fairly self-explanatory. Okay, and what I like to do, I'm going to add a few more colors down in here. Now look at the way the felt pen bleeds, just like a felt pen would. Look at the way it bleeds on top of one another. Really fun, really fun. So let's go ahead and zoom in a little closer, and we can see what's going on here. Let's go ahead to more of an orange. Very, Ambient Design did an excellent job at representing the traditional media in the digital world. Let's go ahead and bring this down a little bit. And when I see the results here, it just excites me. It's like, oh my gosh, I remember doing this when I was a kid with markers. Wonderful, wonderful. Now, let's go over here to the palette knife. This is a fun one. Palette knife is exactly what it says. It's going to move things around. Right now, I'm smudging my paint on the canvas. Okay, I'm using a 50% pressure. Let's go ahead and turn it to 100% and show you what's happening. It's a little stronger. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit more, holding my space bar to move it on over, and I'm basically brushing all of this around. And I have various particular palette types. Okay, let's go this first one. We have flat. We're going to have the edge on this one, and I'm pressing down pretty hard. And I think what is a better illustration on this is, let's zoom down a little bit. Let's go ahead and clear that palette. Let's go get some paint tube. Right over here is paint tube, and let's lay down some paint. Alright, let's go down kind of a cyanish color. Let's lay down some paint. Let's go get some yellow and lay down some yellow paint. How about some red and lay down some red paint? And let's go to our palette knife and play with this. I'm going to click and drag it to make it 100%. And let's go to the first one and see what it does there. Look at that, how it just moves it around. Really nice. Very nice. Okay, come right over here to the second one, the edge. And you can see what it's doing. It's giving us more of an edgy look there. This one here, soft, select it, and it's basically working like smudge in Photoshop, so to speak. And you can see, just like in Photoshop, it moves slow, so be careful of that one. The next one over is blur, working like the blur tool in Photoshop. Okay, so we're just blurring pixels around, softening up their edges, and you might want to do this if you don't want your edges to be super defined. And then we have this one here, is actually one of my favorite, which is the wet, and this is going to be great for making smokes and definitely helpful for clouds. It's actually creating a texture as I'm breaking up this paint. So bringing it on out, and I'm going to smudge some of the yellow on over here. Okay, bring it on. And of course, if I go back to my first one here, which is going to be my flat brush, I can just definitively smudge this stuff on over. Just like pressing down hard on your palette, and you're smoothing your paint. You go get some of the blue, bring it on over. Go get some of the red and bring it on over. We can mix and match and so forth. And then you can come back to your flat, and you can flatten it out to get the effect that you are looking for. Alright, so we have all these options. The dip size, okay, that's the dip in here. As you see in the middle one, we have a little bit of a dip, so we can adjust our dip size to this. Our drip stroke, okay, all this is customizable, right? The drip spread, so just play with it, see what we're getting. This tool can be very good for doing a lot of explosion effects too, I would assume. So if I get my paintbrush and go to white and add a little bit of white in there, just adding some, using my paintbrush to add some white. Okay, pressing down hard in here. Go back to my palette knife, and of course, let's go back to the standard flat, kind of move it out, and then we'll come over here to this one, and we start to just kind of play around with this here. So as I add more highlights down in here, I can get more of an explosion-like effect. Let's go over and add some tube of paint. Now look, if I hold the Option key down, I can sample in these colors. So if I can sample this color here, click and release, and then use my paint tube to lay it down. Sample this color, which is more of a pinkish color, I can lay that color down. Sample the white, I can lay that color down, and of course go back to my paintbrush and start to smudge all this stuff on back. Okay, so pretty neat functionality. Alright, so let's continue on with the next video in Artrage functionality. This is Stephen Burns from ChromaIllusion.com. Enjoy.